And we are live in the live lounge here today. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. So I'm here with the live lounge, which is currently in lockdown mode online, doing interviews to just have a chat with some inspirational people to support, as always, the iStorm audience of women who are in business, but also need a little bit of, life, work, balance, advice and support and inspirations. That's what iStorm is all about, and the live lounge. So today I have got a very inspiring woman, and it's hard to present her because she stands so much. She's so active and very fabulous, and it is Janey Lee Grace. So Janey, you are a BBC Radio 2 presenter. You have a singing background. You have your massive, imperfectly natural blog and website. You do the Alcohol-Free Life podcast, and you're doing so many things. I think we're going to have to just focus on one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wear quite a lot of hats. I do wear a lot of hats, but basically it does all kind of wrap up under the same thing, really, which is that I'm passionate about holistic living and everything that means. So that kind of all comes together, and then I work on the radio a bit.
A little bit for a little while you've been doing that.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. 25. I was thinking about it the other day because my oldest son is 21. So I've actually been doing the same Radio 2 show for 22 years. 22 years! What is that about? Mad. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's passion, isn't it? So, I wanted to do an interview for a long time about women and alcohol, and this is because I just sense that there are things going on that we're not talking about around women and alcohol. And then I've seen you going out with the Alcohol-Free Life podcast and talking about this. So I thought it was a great opportunity, although we've actually been working together on other things more in marketing and the holistic side. But this is a fantastic topic to tap into with you because you're so knowledgeable about it. So tell us what your relationship really is. How has alcohol influenced your life, and why is this something that you're now focusing on?
Yeah, so I never had a rock bottom moment. So I am not one of these people who needed, rehab services or medication or anything like that. I was what we think of in this country anyway as a normal drinker. So herein lies the first issue, really, which is that in the UK, we tend to think that there are two types of drinkers. There are those who are absolute rock bottom and present as alcoholics and are alcohol dependent. And then there's everybody else, happy social drinkers who just sometimes are a bit hopeless, can't hold their beer, can't get it together. And actually, the reality is that's not the truth at all. It's a whole spectrum of what we now know the term is grey area drinkers. And anyone who drinks at all is somewhere on that spectrum. Now, it's called normal to drink every day or to drink, too much or whatever. But I would argue now that it's actually not normal at all. And I would like to see a new normal where it's just as normal to choose not to drink as it is to choose to drink. Because one of the things that hold people back from ditching the booze is the fear of what others will think, the fear of fitting in society. Will I ever be glamorous again? Will I ever be sexy again? Will I ever feel confident again? How will I have fun? What will I drink? There's all these millions of questions, but it actually, we can worry about those things later. Actually, the reality is it all tracks back to why is it normal? Why is drinking alcohol a toxin? Let's not mess with that. It is poison. This just is, bizarrely, I used to think it was good for me because I read all the news reports that said it was. I now know that that's absolute nonsense. You just got to follow the money chain there. But why is it normal to do something that actually poisons our body every single day? Actually, it isn't. It's a societal norm because it's been going on for hundreds of years, but that doesn't make it right. And those of us who are a little bit more open can question that for ourselves. Having said all of that, I'm not for prohibition. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm not trying to say no one should drink. Some people can drink and they can have one drink and they can leave it. They don't even think about it. It's not an issue. They have an off switch. Okay, just like I do with coffee. I can have a coffee and I'm satiated by that coffee. It was really nice, but I don't go, I need another one, or I need another one. There isn't a voice in my head telling me there's a whole cafetiere there, you need to finish it all. Oh, and then when you finished it all, go and get another one. There isn't a voice in my head saying that, but there was with the wine. And I'm one of those people who do not have a built-in off switch. So the danger there is that however small you start, if you have any stress in your life, and let's face it, right now, most people have got some level of anxiety, what happens is it increases and it increases and it increases. And the irony of that, of course, is that alcohol lowers your immunity and massively increases your anxiety.
So this is, of course, why we're talking about this right now as well, because I found myself, and I'm not a big drinker, and I don't drink usually during the weeks at all. But when this kicked off, when we started to see this worry of the epidemic, and I happened to have a bottle of red wine at home in the evening, suddenly I actually felt that I really not only just fancied one, but I needed it just to calm myself down. And that's a bit worrying. And of course, I see a lot of women, not just in this country, but it is easy to have that, oh, let's have a glass of this, let's have a G&T, let's calm down with a glass of red. And then, as you say, in a situation like this, when anxiety is all around, we will step it up and have an extra glass, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three. So I'm wondering, because I think that historically we are kind of more, not accepting maybe, but we have come to see more men as alcoholic and being more accepting towards that than women, because we kind of think that, oh, women are mothers, they should be more responsible. Is this true, do you think? Are more men likely to drink, or are women drinking as much as men?
Well, I don't know about the exact statistics, but what I do know is that men's bodies process alcohol differently. Women and alcohol do not mix very well at all. We do have, I'm sorry for anyone who finds that offensive, but there is a difference between men and women's bodies, and our bodies are generally do not have the same tolerance for alcohol as men's. Also, if you bring into the equation the hormonal picture, anyone who's coming near to menopause or perimenopausal, oh my God, if you want to, help yourself through the menopause, that number one, ditch the booze. It makes a massive difference, massive difference, not to mention anxiety, etc., as we've already said. But the reality is that many years ago, you're right, alcohol was thought of as the man's domain. The man would go to the pub or drink too much or whatever, and the woman would be at home. But at some point in history, the marketing companies thought, hold on a minute, we can create, drinks that work great for women here. We can come up with Baby Sham. I think Baby Sham was one of the first, funnily enough, if anyone's old enough to remember that. I vaguely remember my mum talking about Baby Sham, but it would only be Christmas, but she would talk about, oh, I'm going to have a Baby Sham, because it felt glamorous. So the marketing companies realized that they were really, really onto something here, because they could link women with alcohol. Not only could they link women with alcohol, they could get women to think that that would make them more glamorous and sexy and all the rest of it. And over time, what happened is women's drinking ramped up to not far off the same as men's. And we've seen the whole ladette culture and everything else. And women in the workplace are equal to men. So you've got women in the city or whatever, and they're expected to drink the same amount as the guys, and they do. And so there is a massive issue going on here. And not only do we not have the tolerance, actually, as parents, those of us who have children, again, this is the best thing you can ever do for your kids. Most women will say they will do anything for their children. That's the best thing you can ever do. If you actually really want to be present for your kids, then don't drink. That is, you know, people say don't have any regrets. That's my regret. My regret is that I didn't do this sooner, because there were a lot of years when I wasn't as present as I could have been for my kids. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't ever have a rock bottom moment. As I say, you wouldn't, you know, you're not going to find me on a skip. I wouldn't miss a day off work. I never drove after drinking. No one ever would have known. But I knew, and I woke at 3 a.m., hated myself. I know that while I was reading a bedtime story, actually what I was thinking was, for God's sake, I'm going to skip a page because there's a nice glass of Sauvignon waiting for me there. You know, so
that's not great, is it?
It's so not great. And you know, when there, I can't even begin to list all the benefits that come with ditching the booze. It's I wouldn't have time to list them all. But being present for your kids and modeling that we do not need a toxic liquid to feel normal is one of the best things you can absolutely ever do.
And how do we know when it's going too far? Do you think there are specific signs that we can pick up on and be aware of if we accept that there is a bit of drinking occasionally, but when does it go too far?
Yeah, I mean, see, as I say, see, I'm not saying that no one should drink alcohol. I'm not saying we should have prohibition. My website is called Imperfectly Natural. I don't get everything right. You know, I'm really passionate about holistic living and living without chemicals and good nutrition and all the rest of it. But I don't get everything right. I'm not 100% eco warrior. There are loads of things I don't get right. I'm fully aware of that. And we all make our choices of what it is we want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. The bottom line with alcohol, though, is that alcohol is addictive. Okay, it is addictive. So it really comes down to whether you believe your life would be better without it. So the question I ask, I started my TED talk with this question, is a question to ask yourself is, would my life be better physically and emotionally without alcohol? If the answer is, God, yeah, actually, I know it would, but I just don't know where to start, then there's loads we can do to help you. If the answer is, no, I'm good, then you're good. It really is only an issue if it's an issue for you. If you are one of those people who have an off switch, if you can have a glass of wine and not worry about it again, then great. If you know when you've had enough, like I do with my coffee, great. But there are loads and loads of people who are grey area drinkers. They can stop, and they have stopped, and they probably did stop while they had the kids, and they probably, you know, a little bit conscious, and they try to just have two, and but really it's an inner turmoil that's going on, and you've got this little voice in your head that says, this is not quite right, this is not quite authentic with who you really are. And then if you're one of those kind of people, even if you're not drinking very much, if something goes wrong, if you hit a crisis, or you shift into some other gear, you will possibly, not necessarily definitely, but possibly, then your subconscious mind will see alcohol as the answer. And that's why this is dangerous. This is a dangerous time. Sales of alcohol, I just read, have gone up 22% in the last 2 weeks.
Really? That is a lot.
It's
22%.
staggering. 22% in the UK over the last accounting period, 10 days or something, since all of this kicked in, you know, panic buying, people drinking more. And my fear is for those who already perhaps have anxiety, already have, you know, can already have concerns about their mental health and well-being. And yes, alcohol does a very good job initially of numbing you out, initially, but that doesn't last very long. You get all the repercussions afterwards. So, you know, I suppose, yeah, just to go back to the question you asked, I run the Sober Club, a little membership community, and the bottom line to join the Sober Club is, have you made the decision that you would like to ditch the booze? Notice my language, because I haven't used the word give up. At least if I have, I didn't mean to. I never say give up, because I haven't given up anything. I've only gained. I ditched the booze, that's my phrase, 2 years and 3 months ago. And I can honestly say there is not one thing I have given up. So it's a very different shift in mentality. You know, you aren't losing anything. You aren't giving up anything. You're only gaining. It's a different switch of thinking.
And do you think there's pressure for people who stopped drinking from their surrounding and friends and family, that they are going to be a little bit, you know, mocked and get some.
Yeah, I mean,
Or,
there's this phrase, isn't there? You know, alcohol is the only drug you have to justify not taking. You know, think about that. It's absolutely bonkers. And yes, people are really fearful of the sober shaming, you know, what comes along with it. People saying, oh, you're no fun anymore. Oh, go on, just have one. Oh, you know, don't be ridiculous. Actually, you know, I've worked with a lot of people now who that's been their biggest fear, particularly if they drink in the workplace or their life revolves around social activity. Of course, it's very different now for all of us, but you know, or even with your family, even at home, if that's kind of their life has revolved around it, when you stop, yeah, it can be a shock for some people, and it can be your biggest fear, is that fear of what other people will say. But the reality is, if you do a little bit of prep, and I would recommend you do a bit of prep, and you don't just rock up to a bar or your kitchen if you're with your family and say, I'm not drinking, that won't go very well. They will just simply say, oh, don't be ridiculous, here, have one, and your subconscious mind will, oh, okay, I'll start tomorrow. So actually you do need to do a bit of prep. But once you've done a bit of prep and you are strong and authentic and you've made your decision for you, and you're going to go through the process, because it is tough at the beginning, as is anything worth doing, you'll find that actually people don't care that much. They actually really don't. They only care about their own drink. And most people actually I can't tell you how many people I've had say to me, oh my God, I really admire what you've done. I wish I could do it. Well, you can. And most people, if they really are your friends, will support you. They really will support you, and and particularly if you tell the truth and you say, you know what, I'm choosing not to drink because it's better for my mental health that way. I feel better. Who can argue with that?
absolutely. I mean, I have another thing that I've been going through with my teenage son, which I'm sure you've been through as well. And he's very, he doesn't want to drink. He's very sporty. He wants to keep fit and healthy. But of course, everyone around him, since he was, you know, 12, actually started drinking. And he's not really been pushed into it. But what shocked me the most was when he went to friends and their parents offered him a drink. And he actually had to call me, bless him, he did, and say, Mum, is it okay if I taste the Prosecco, because we are celebrating? And that was so difficult. And I found it really awful that other parents put my son in that situation.
I know. I think you see, this is the thing. When I talk about alcohol being the societal norm, we think that we can't do anything in this country without alcohol. Celebrations and commiserations, literally, alcohol is the glue that sticks it together, whether it's a play date, a wedding, a party, a dinner, a funeral. It doesn't matter what it is, we think alcohol is the answer, right? But how can it be the answer for when you're really depressed and for when you're really happy? Answer is, it isn't. It's nothing to do with the alcohol. It really is nothing to do with what's in the glass. It's to do with the people you're with and the occasion. And if a party's a crap party, it'll be a crap party with alcohol, and vice versa. But anyway, in terms of your son, I hear what you're saying. But, you know, I think the only thing I can say is there is some good news on the horizon. And that is that you will have noticed that a high percentage of millennials are choosing not to drink. They are a lot brighter than we are, and they're seeing that this is just a stupid waste of money. They are also seeing that there is a massive rise and an amazing choice of alcohol-free drinks. And that is some of the great news that's come out, even just in the last couple of years. If I'd have ditched the booze 5 years ago, I would have found it way harder. Now, it really is not difficult at all, because, again, lovely phrase coming up, keep the ritual, change the ingredients. Say, thank you, I would love a drink. The word drink doesn't need to mean alcohol. I'll have a beautiful glass, and again, it annoys me to have to call it a wine glass. I'll have a beautiful glass, and I'll have some alcohol-free sparkling wine in there, or I'll have a Fever Tree tonic pimped with some lime or whatever. Yes, I'd love a drink. Keep the ritual, change the ingredients. When it comes to other parents, I think it's incredibly rude, because what they're doing there is they are questioning or forcing a lifestyle choice. Now, if your son was vegan, they would not be trying to force meat onto him. He wouldn't even be needing to phone you. And that's what and people who are concerned and worried about relating to other people, think of this as a dietary choice. It's just a dietary choice. That's all it is. So just like you would go to a restaurant or a bar or go to a friend's house and you'd say, by the way, thanks, but I won't have any of that because I'm vegan. No one's going to question that. Okay, see if we've got something else for you. If not, you're not going to go, oh, well, I'm vegan, but you know what, to celebrate, I'll just have a bit of meat. That's not going to happen, is it? The other thing you can do, if you really want to think, be strong about this, is switch the word alcohol for heroin. And then think to yourself, well, should my 14-year-old, 15-year-old be having just a little bit of heroin? I don't think so. So,
I love
how
the way
strong you want me to be on this, but of course I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago. That's why I'm not being at all judgmental, because I wouldn't have been saying this. In fact, I'd have been saying to you, hey, I read in the paper today, red wine is good for my heart. Is it hell? It's so not. It so isn't. There are a lot of things that are good for your heart, but red wine is not one of them. And it will lower your immunity and it will increase your anxiety. But I still come back to saying, don't forget there's this expression, mindful drinking. And there are a lot of young people who are choosing not to drink at all. And there's also now a massive percentage of people who are seeing the light and they are becoming mindful drinkers. So they are very aware that they have an off switch, but they're aware they have to look after it. So what that means is, if you decide to, for you obviously have an off switch if you don't drink regularly, but for someone like you in this point in time when there's a lot of anxiety around, if you choose to become a mindful drinker, then be really clear about your own boundaries around drinking. So you might decide, okay, I'll drink at the weekends, or I'll drink, well, whatever it is for you, you make your choice. But here's one really important rule that I would put in place. If you're choosing to be a mindful drinker, you set out as and when you will drink and stick to that. Okay, so if it's a Tuesday night, you drink on a Tuesday night or whatever, as long as you don't make it, oh, well, I'll drink, every time I have a special meal, because then you'll just be having special meals every night, But if you've set those boundaries, that's all good. But then here's one rule. Make a pact with yourself and write it down that you will never have a drink if you are upset, angry, fearful, or celebrating.
This is brilliant. That's
so
really, really,
that
really
will really wipe it out, because that will mean that when you said you went for that red wine the other night, actually the truth of it is, if you'd questioned yourself, you were reaching for the red wine because you felt anxious about the current situation. Completely understandable. So your new rule, you'd have to say, no, I'm feeling really anxious and fearful now, I'm not going to drink, because that's when your subconscious mind associates alcohol with, oh, making me feel better. That's what I need to relax me. Okay, and that they're the body-mind connections that we want to break, because it's not true.
That's fantastic advice. I read that is so clear and makes such sense when you hear it like that. And I think it's really good to have these guidelines for yourself and set up where do you want to be, where you're going to go with it, and just be really firm, of course. But if you've obviously got the Alcohol-Free Life podcast, and there's also the Sober Club. So tell us a little bit more about the podcast, first of all.
Yeah, so the podcast, I started it because one of my top tips for anyone ditching the booze is to, this lovely phrase, emotions, not logic, inspire action. And actually we need both. We need to know why we're doing this. Don't just take my word for it that alcohol is addictive and bad for you. Do your own research, and there's masses out there. But in addition to the logic, we all have this logical part of our brain that I guess on a subconscious level, I knew alcohol was bad for me before, even though I was still drinking. But I didn't have the feelings associated. I didn't have the emotional buy-in to make me motivated to want to stop. So what I would really recommend, if anyone is going to ditch the booze, is that they immerse themselves in the knowledge and the inspiration, so that they get the why should I stop? Alcohol's bad for me piece, but they also, really importantly, get the inspirational piece. Those who've been there before you, those who can tell you, okay, you feel crap now because you're only a month in, and your sleep will be disrupted, and your skin won't be clear yet, and this won't have kicked in yet, and you'll be wondering, what the hell am I doing this for? Okay, but you read a book, it's called quitting literature. read a book, and I can recommend masses, and you'll see someone else has been there, done it, and come through. And it's such a small thing, but it's so inspirational. And I did that. I immersed myself in the Quit Lit and the podcasts. until I'd listened to them all. I couldn't wait a week for another one. And then I started to realize, hold on, there's all these amazing authors and experts around. I want to interview them. So I just started the podcast. It's a total labor of love. You know, I don't have any funding or advertising or anything. I do it because I really love it. And I'm so lucky. I've had some amazing guests. Just about all the top Quit Lit authors have been on the podcast, including Janey Grace, who's a big US Quit Lit author, Catherine Gray, who wrote The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, which is a fantastic book, Claire Pooley, who wrote The Sober Diaries. That's the one to start with, by the way, particularly if you're a parent in the UK. So that's why I started the podcast, and I absolutely love doing it. A recent one had Dr. David Hamilton telling us how we can use the power of our mind, use visualization to fight infection. I mean, fantastic. You can't get better than that. So I'm really proud of the podcast. I love doing it. And then I formed the Sober Club. It's a membership community. And I formed that really because I was becoming aware that there were lots of people who had ditched the booze, or they were in the process of doing, and they were solid in their decision. They didn't need a lot more help in the actual process, but they needed to know what's next. They needed the right nutrition and fitness tips and well-being tips and meditation and mindset. And so the Sober Club, we have members there who are on day one. And we've got an online course as part of it called Get the Buzz Without the Booze. And that goes through all the psychological and nutrition pieces, everything. And then when you come out the end of that 90-day course, and by the way, you can do it for other stuff. So if you've already ditched the booze, you can do it for sugar. And it works really well. But yeah, so we've got the online course. And then after that, there's just masses of content around all these different aspects. And then obviously we have a private Facebook community as well, which at the moment is proving amazing, because you know, so many people, even if they ditch the booze, I don't know, we've got some members ditched the booze 4 years ago. This kind of current anxiety brings back all kinds of thoughts you never thought you would have. You know, it's and to be able to share those and reach out for help is really the key. So yeah, so I love doing it. It's very time consuming, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I really love it. I really love it because just seeing so many people's, it's not just that they've ditched the booze, it's seeing what else is going on. I've seen so many people now who have started, you know, writing, started journaling. One woman is writing a book, another has changed her career, someone has started a charity, someone else has created this charity where she's got this kitchen garden. I mean, there's just amazing stuff happening. When you ditch the booze, it's like your world opens up. I mean, I used to think I had a lot of energy and I got a lot done, but it's nothing compared to what you can do when you've ditched the booze, because you've got a whole new level of expansion, if you like, really.
That sounds beautiful. So where can people find the Sober Club and the podcast?
Yeah, so if you go to thesoberclub.com and you just click on podcasts, and all the podcasts are there, and there's some blog posts and some competitions. You can watch my TEDx talk called Sobriety Rocks, Who Knew? And then there's a little link if you're interested in joining as a member.
Fantastic. Now, that's really, really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing both your personal experience and advice, and analyzing the current climate a little bit around alcohol. I think it is far too easy to reach for a glass of something at the moment. So we just need to be cautious and really know that we are not going too far with it. Now, because of the audience here is it's a lot of self-employed and smaller businesses and women in business who potentially, well, anyone can struggle at the moment, but we wanted to talk a little bit about your Platinum Awards as well, because you're actually looking for nominations, aren't you?
Well, yeah, it's not so much nominations, it's entries, really. I run the Platinum Awards every year, and it's for brands and services that are based around well-being, holistic living, eco-living, spiritual stuff. It's a very wide berth. And again, this comes back to me wearing so many hats. The amount of times people have said to me, why don't you just do a natural beauty and skincare thing? Because that's your thing, you know, just focus on natural beauty and skincare. And then I say, well, because it doesn't really matter what you put on your skin if you're eating crap, and it doesn't really matter if you eat well if you haven't got your headspace, or, you know. So anyway, it ended up being very broad, very wide, but whatever, it works. And we're in our 5th year, I think. We've got great judges. We've got Joe Wood judging, and Cary Grant, and Glynis Barber, and me, obviously. And basically we welcome entries from anyone who has a holistic product, but also services, so therapists, coaches, authors of well-being books. That's kind of the remit. Now, I'd literally just opened up for entries when all of this kicked in, and my first thought was, I don't know whether I should carry on, because, you know, there's going to be some brands who are going to be really struggling right now, and they can't afford an entry fee. It won't feel important, you know. But it was very interesting, because then what happened over the next few days was, one by one, I got more and more requests from journalists saying, actually, you know, I've got to write a piece on how we can boost our immunity, or I've got to write a piece on, you know, is there a natural hand cream now that everyone's washing their hands? And can you help me with this? Can you recommend something? My goodness, I've got more opportunities to promote the brands that I work with than I've ever had before. So I am sensitive to the fact that not everyone has, you know, a lot of finance right now. But if your business is continuing because you can sell products online, or you're a coach or whatever, then you know, I'd urge you just to think about it. We've got a discount at the moment on entries, and these awards are, just to explain, very much not a case of pay money, wait to see if you won an award. It's not really like that at all. The award is, if you like, just the icing on the cake. It's really just about collaborating with me for a season where I do some promo. It's really about building awareness of natural and holistic products. So over this summer period, I just blast really as much promo out there as I can for holistic wellbeing brands. And then at the end of that, some people might win an award. We've also got a pop-up shop, non-toxic pop-up shop, happening in London in September, please. But the you know, I almost wish I hadn't. It's a difficult one, because, you know, whichever way you do it, some people say, oh, I haven't got money for that, I don't want to invest in that. But actually, for a really small investment, you get masses, and potentially masses of awareness and promo at a time when actually people really need to know about your wellbeing products. I do think if anything good can come from this, it might be a new consciousness actually about taking responsibility for the bits we can take responsibility for. We can't control a pandemic, but we can control what we put in our mouth, what we put on our skin, what we think. You know, we can control those bits.
Absolutely. I think this is a fantastic opportunity you're offering. I think it's great for people with a brand or products or knowledge. So thank you for sharing that. And again, where do they enter? Is that on your website?
Yes, if they go to platinumawards.co.uk and just drop me a message if you want the discount code, because I can't remember it.
That's all right. I'll post. I do a separate.
Yeah, I'll send that to you.
With the code as well. Yeah. Fantastic. That is so interesting, and thank you so much for talking about this.
Well, no, I really appreciate you talking about it, because, you know, if more people had been talking about it when I was at this stage a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have needed to feel like I was the only one. I thought I was the only person who was waking up at 3 a.m. beating myself up, you know, for drinking too much. But I now know there are thousands and millions. So thank you for raising this, you know, kind of issue. You just never know. There might be somebody who thinks, God, that's me.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm doing this, because I'm sensing there's both a taboo talking about women and alcohol. It is the social norm, and I see more and more women who are taking to the bottle, or whatever you want to call it. I see them that they are not actually coping with the situation very much because they have, or very well because they've actually had too much to drink, or they're withdrawing. Yeah. And you know, we've got to do whatever we can to support each other. This is a little part where I can do. I'm not putting myself above anyone, and it's not a topic I know a lot about. So thank you for sharing and inviting people to your podcast and the Sober Club as well.
Thank you.
That's great. And yeah, stay well, stay healthy. I'm sure you've got the means to stay healthy. And I'll be back with a new live lounge next week again. So stay tuned, and I will be posting this on YouTube on the Ice Storm channel, where you can find more interviews with different inspirational, fantastic, magnificent people sharing their expertise and just general inspiration to keep a happier and healthier environment, both for work and in life in general. So thank you again, Janey Lee Grace,
Cheers.
and I'll
Thank
catch you
you.
soon.